And it's not a Tchouameni emergency episode. And we thought that this might turn into that, and we were prepared to send around a Zoom link so people can join us. We promise you, if and when it becomes official, and it could be by Thursday, then we'll send out a Zoom link exclusively for patrons, and we'll do it together. We'll do the emergency show together live on Zoom with everybody. But we're going to save most of the Tchouameni stuff for that day. However, we are going to touch on it tonight because you can't not touch on it. Like, what are you going to do? Just ignore it completely? So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to explore it a little bit. So joining me here, as always, is Matt. Matt, I thought we could start with some of your thoughts on Twitter today about Tchouameni's price tag. It seems like you believe in the player, but you're skeptical about the price. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yeah, not necessarily. It's hard to put into words exactly how I think about it. I think I don't know that it's given the squad we have. That's what I'm skeptical. I can't even say it. Skeptical about paying that much amount of money if he's not going to be a starter. If he's going to be a starter and he's going to be a starter for 10 years, then yeah, okay, I'm all for it. But I know a lot of people wrote back to me and said, it's probably he's probably going to be a rotational figure for one season, and he'll take the spot of Casemiro, maybe Modric, maybe Kroos. And I don't know. I don't know that we can really say that's a guarantee. How long have we been saying that about how many players? And Odegaard, Kovacic, go down the list. Llorente. They were all supposed to replace these guys at some point. And so I think when you spend $100 million, when a club like Real Madrid spends $100 million, they spend it on a player they expect to start. We've never spent this type of money, even accounting for inflation. If you go back to 2009, it was only a 15 to 20 million difference. He would have same summer as Cristiano Ronaldo. If we bought Tchouameni in 2009, adjusted the fee for inflation, he'd be worth 80 million. We'd be paying 80, 85 million. So this is still a huge sum, almost as much as Cristiano Ronaldo in that summer. And so when Real Madrid throws that type of money around, I think it's for a starter. That's just kind of where my head's at. So I'm curious to see what type of dominoes fall. I would be beyond shocked if Casemiro were sold. I just can't see it. I would be really, really surprised. And then Kroos and Modric, I don't think they're going to leave. Modric is getting renewed, obviously, and Kroos is. There was talk right after the final that he's going to extend his contract another year to 2024. So I don't know. I don't see how, especially after winning the Champions League with that three and with how well Casemiro played. Yes, I know people tell me that, Casemiro's poor for most of the season. Yes, but at the end of the day, who's starting the Champions League final? Who's starting the knockout runs? Who's starting the big games?
And was incredible, by the way, in the final.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And so if Tchouameni's not playing those games, then you just spent $100 million for a player not to be kind of an immediate impact. Maybe that's the new day and age, but I don't know. I've never seen Real Madrid do that. It's not to say that they wouldn't. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here and see what could really be going on behind the scenes.
No, you're speaking my language. I usually, the way I look at it is the smartest people are the ones who are asking the questions and not speaking definitively, because I think we all have these questions, right? I think that I read some of the replies to your Twitter thread, and a lot of people are just reacting too definitively either way. So to me, the way I think I would be able to justify the price tag pretty easily, but I would spin it a different way. Do I think Aurelien Tchouameni is worth over 100 million? I mean, it's possible that may not pan out. To me, this is a little bit different, though, than spending 100 million on a 29-year-old Eden Hazard, or just an older player who it's always risky giving that one final contract to a player just under 30 or just over 30. And this is not a risk in that sense because this is more of a long-term ploy. The way I would justify it in my brain, just to rationalize it a little bit, to sign a player that I really truly believe would be extremely useful for the next decade or so, I would spin it in a different way. I would say if you told me like a few months ago or last year that we would get Rudiger and Tchouameni for a combined 100 million, I would be like, that's fucking awesome. Let's do it. I kind of look at it. That's the way I'm thinking about this. Only because I think like if we're talking like, okay, let's say Tchouameni is worth 60 million, not 100 million. That's fine. But how much is that extra 40 million? Are those just drops in the bucket if we're having this discussion 10 years from now? Thinking about like, holy shit, we have solidified our anchor position for the next decade. Will that 40 million really matter? We have the cash right now. So I don't think this is as risky as, spending this money on an older player. That's the way I'm looking at it. So in terms of the question of does he come to start, unless I'm really missing something, and this is off the top of my head, but I don't think there's ever been a case where Real Madrid have ever spent that money for a player not to be a starter. Not their first season anyway. We've seen Kaká be demoted eventually. We've seen Gareth Bale, Eden Hazard be demoted eventually. Probably a bunch of names that I'm forgetting. It usually takes time, but usually they're starting pretty regularly at first. This one might be the opposite because they may flip it and treat it like they treated Camavinga, where it's like just gradual. We ease you into the lineup. I'd be shocked if Casemiro gets sold, and I don't know. I'm not sure how the club will juggle it. The biggest thing for me is that from everything we know, Carlo Ancelotti and Florentino Perez have called Tchouameni specifically and said, we need you, we want you. And whatever they pitched to him, it seems to have worked. So what are they promising him? A starting role? Or are they promising him like, hey, we have great midfielders here, but you're going to be part of something special? Ask Camavinga. He eventually worked his way in. We have a similar plan for you. Is that enough to pitch him on the idea? I don't know. As much as I think that price tag is really high for a bench player, don't you think it's a little bit shocking that Carlo Ancelotti would pick up the phone and say, we're signing you to be a starter? I don't think that is something that happened. I think the conversation was more like, we believe in you, we really want you moving forward, but you're going to have to earn your spot just as any other midfielder here. That's the way I think the conversation probably went.
No, I don't know. Because I think if you're getting a player to commit to you when he has offers, like he was really close to Liverpool. He was really, obviously PSG offered him a ton of money. I think he wanted to go abroad. Like that was in his mind from the get-go. But I think he was good with Premier League or Real Madrid. And Chelsea was in for him pretty strong as well until all this ownership stuff happened. But they were actually leading the race, I would say, probably back in the spring. And then it came down to Liverpool, PSG, Real Madrid. And Liverpool almost had it all wrapped up. And something shifted. Real Madrid, obviously the Kylian Mbappe saga fell apart. And Real Madrid put all their, quickly pivoted and put all their effort towards Tchouameni. And I don't know. I think when a coach is calling you and having conversations like that, I think he's telling you, this is how we'll play with you and the team. And I won't get into how I think the team will change with Tchouameni in the field because we'll save that for the emergency pod. But I think he was having larger discussions like that, and telling him more about just how important he would be and just how big his role would be, and maybe not saying the word starter. I don't know if that's, but I don't think he would say that he's not a starter either. And so I don't know. I think especially for Tchouameni to make the decision that he did, I think there had to have been some commitments there, because the other thing too is he's starting for France right now. He doesn't want to jeopardize that starting position ahead of the World Cup. And he even talked about that publicly. He said maybe staying at Monaco for another year isn't a bad idea with the World Cup ahead. So I don't know. I really think that you're spending this type of money. You've had the coach and the president. The president was reportedly the one like handling the negotiations. The coach is calling him. Like I think all these things come together, and it kind of makes me lean towards how can he not start? And then you, but then you think about like, okay, if he doesn't start, then is he taking away minutes from Camavinga, taking away minutes from Rodrigo Valverde? Like, um, it's just a lot to think about. I feel like there might be a surprise this summer in a departure or something. I don't know, but
Okay, so let's unpack that, because if there's a departure this summer to accommodate him, it has to be Casemiro. It can't be anyone else. It make like from a positional standpoint, it's not Modric because he's renewed. It's not going to be Cruz. He's not going anywhere. And if I had to guess, I think both of those players are at worst heavy rotational players who are going to be playing a ton of minutes, and at best they're starting almost every game, if not every game. Camavinga is going to be incorporated more. He's going to be playing more minutes this year than he played last year. That's a given. Fede Valverde is... Look, the only way you could accommodate, I guess, Casemiro and Tchouameni together is you did some kind of double pivot, and you did Casemiro, Tchouameni, plus one of the other midfielders, and then you put Fede Valverde on the right wing, and you kind of... But there's no way like that. If the pitch... If I'm still skeptical about that. I don't know if the pitch was you're going to be a starter. But let's say if the pitch was you're a starter, then it has to be Casemiro. So, for argument's sake, why don't we just have that conversation right now? Who is a starter right now? Let's forget about everything that Casemiro ever did for the club. Let's forget about what he did in the final. Right now, forget about reality. Just who would be a better starter for this Real Madrid team? Would it be Tchouameni or Casemiro? And I also just want to preface the discussion by saying that, not to get out of hand, because I think I've been right on several young players, but I've been wrong plenty of times about how a young player pans out. But I think this Tchouameni right now, based on what we know right now, how he's performed with Monaco, both on the domestic and European scale, in big games, and also with the French national team, and if you take that and also assume that he's going to continue progressing, I think he's going to be an absolute gem of a defensive midfielder. He's going to be one of the best in the world, if not already, for a long time. I think we're going to be having a really interesting conversation on his legacy 10 years from now. Could be completely wrong, but I'm just going based on what we know right now. If he completely fails after this, it's out of my control. Just look at it pound for pound. He's a better passer. He's a better vertical passer. He's a better ball carrier. He's a better dribbler. He's a more press-resistant player. He can read the game at the same elite level. He can tackle at the same level. He intercepts the ball better. He reads it in that sense better. I mean, he has 114 interceptions in Liga, and no one even comes close to that number. He has actually pretty similar aerial ability to Casemiro. He's just not going to be the guy who's going to be maybe stationed in zone 14 clearing things a million times. I'm just bringing all of this up for the sake of the argument. That's all. But having said all of that, Casemiro is incredible defensively. Incredible. Has been incredible for a long time. And he is a leader, and the biggest thing we haven't talked about yet is that everyone loves him. And I just don't know how you sell a player like that. I mean, it would be incredible to me. Like, it would be incredibly disrespectful somehow, like, to even think about selling him right now after what we accomplished together this year. It would be really crazy. Unless they've told Casemiro, like, look, we want Tchouameni to compete with you. You're going to be starting some. He's going to be starting some. Maybe they could pitch it that way. I don't know. So I don't know what you think, but I think it has to come down to those two.
Yeah, I don't know, because like a lot of the French experts I was reading have been talking about, and they think his best position is as a number 8, as an interior. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but
I don't agree with that.
that's where he started to play at the end of the season as well. Um, but if he does play in that position, it just gives you something. I think you can change the way you play, especially if you're playing with Camavinga, and Valverde in one team. Like, think about the amount of just you have almost a team built for Jurgen Klopp. Like a team that's can win the ball so far up the pitch. You can move your team up another 10 meters up the pitch with just having those players on the field. Um, so I think that's what he does, and I mean, you look at just when you say Camavinga, Valverde, Tchouameni, it's just probably one of the most physically dominant midfields in the world. But I think the concern there is, do they have the progressive passing, the kind of eye of the needle type stuff to be able to maybe slow down games, control games, be the metronome that Kroos and Modric sometimes are. And I think Tchouameni maybe has that a little bit more than Valverde or even Camavinga. But since the other two don't have it as much as you would maybe need in a or what we've known in a Real Madrid midfield, I think the style of play has to shift completely. So unless we're going to make a major pivot, which I don't think is going to happen this year, I don't know. I don't know. Like you said, Tchouameni kind of he beats Casemiro on nearly every offensive metric, and he matches him on a couple defensive metrics. But then everything else defensively, like Casemiro, is far and away the standout, and he beats basically everyone in his position when it comes to that. But reading the game, I think Tchouameni's just as good as Casemiro. He's 99th percentile in interceptions. Like, that's ridiculous.
I just don't know if I see him. I mean, it's not that he can't play the 8, but to me, he can play the 8 the same way that Camavinga can play the 6. It's not their best role. Well, why don't we take a patron question, actually? We're going to take a few patron questions that were left over from the mailbag that came in after Lucas and I started recording. This one ties in. It's from Nicolas Zapatero Zubiara. He says, hi, is Valverde creative enough to make a hypothetical Tchouameni, Valverde, Camavinga midfield work? Or would this work better with him playing as the hybrid right winger with a more creative midfielder like Ceballos in the mix?
I think it depends on the style of play you want. I think if you want that high octane, high pressing, and basically you create your chances from winning the ball high up the field rather than through the more creative passes I was just talking about, the line breaking eye of the needle passes, then you go with the midfield three of Valverde, Camavinga, Tchouameni. But if you're playing against a deeper block, you're going to control possession. You need somebody like Liverpool incorporated a Thiago into their team. You need somebody like that. Then I think that's when you move Fede out to the right wing, or maybe you exempt him altogether and you put somebody like a Ceballos and a Rodrigo on the field.
Yeah, this will be interesting. I think it's one of the big questions we all have. I do think that the midfield trio of Camavinga, Tchouameni, and Fede can work, and I think it's just going to be a different style of play. I think that midfield can generate chances. I think it's very obvious that it's going to be a press-resistant team. I definitely trust those three to be able to escape presses. I'd also wager that we'd press more with them in the lineup together, because, I mean, as you said, like, part of the reason why this is so intriguing and exciting is if you pair those three together, it's like putting together three Greek gods and seeing what happens. You know, like, these guys are freaking Avengers physically. I mean, they're such beasts. And to have that two-way energy is really exciting. I think it'll rely a lot on... I think if let's put together all the traits. Fede Valverde, elite ball carrier. Camavinga, elite ball winner. And Tchouameni, bit of everything. All of those, including the progressive passing. I think it's going to be, you're going to see a lot of Tchouameni doing a lot of quarterback stuff, the way Kroos does from like a deep lying position, dropping between the center backs, getting the ball up the field. I also think, a combination with that and Rudiger and Alaba, I think we're actually in a really good spot to escape pressing aggressive presses in the next few years. So I think it'll work. But as you said, like, if you want to press more, you want to control more, how does that look? It's not going to be maybe the surgical stuff that Modric does and some of the stuff you can't teach, but I think we've seen Camavinga break lines up the field, right? We've seen it. We've seen him do it with his dribbling, with his movement off the ball. I think you're going to be able to create a bunch of chances. It's just going to be a different stylistic approach than what we've been used to in the past few years. Any other Tchouameni stuff, or should we save it for the emergency podcast?
Let's save it. Let's save it.
All right. Do you want to take a couple questions and then maybe circle back to other transfer stuff, like talking about Gabriel Jesus and stuff like that?
Sure.
All right. Daniel Smith says,